Hi everyone. For Module 7, I decided for my teaching strategies I was going to do the topic of accounting, or class accounting, and the topic of a world of accounting, linking accounting to daily life, recognizing accounting transactions outside the classroom, and accounting for, or like what it would look like for people from the outside and like how they view accounting in their daily lives, not just from an accountant's point of view. So for the first instructor-centered lesson, I chose a lecture, and a lecture is just where the teacher is just discussing and reading over and going through the lesson. Sometimes there's student interaction, sometimes there's not. The students will listen and be able to understand like how accounting happens in everyday life and not just in an accounting firm. Using this strategy, I feel like it's important to be energetic with the kids and give them something to look forward to throughout the lesson, and not just like a monotonous lesson that they'll get bored and hard to pay attention in. So I'll just like go through the lesson with them and give students scenarios where accounting is needed and demonstrated in every aspect of the world. For the second strategy, interactive, I chose peer teaching. Teaching uses a lot of student involvement, and it is to be monitored like really carefully, just to make sure that the students are actually like producing something and not just like chit-chatting, and it needs to be very organized and like clear to the students. It'll help them feel like they're contributing and learning as they're like discussing, and I think that's super helpful. Students will learn what accounting is. During the real world, they can either do peer reading or they can read the chapter over a short period of time and get with their peers. The students will have 5 minutes to write down and think of a time that they saw accounting or ran into accounting in just daily life. And they will demonstrate and teach their peers about a time that they saw accounting in the real world. And then to sum up the lesson, the students will write down their example they thought of, as well as 3 others that were shared with them from their peers, just to kind of like let them know like you actually have to listen to what your peers are saying, and they will know what their peers' thoughts are, because they will get 1 minute increments, and I'll set a timer, and the students will just have a minute to talk to someone, and then the person they're talking to will then give their turn and their example, and then they'll move on and go from there. For the third one, I chose individualized individual projects. Individual projects are used like for higher education and like more in high schools and like lower level. They're time consuming and often like used to challenge students, but they can be not as intense sometimes as well. To give a project to students on this topic was kind of like hard to come up with, but the students are going to go out into their daily lives, and they're going to record 10 transactions minimum of like what's going on in their daily lives. And I understand that students at a high school level aren't going to have a lot of like money that they spend like throughout the week, and some might not. So I also have the option that students can like come up with 10 transactions that are realistic, like paying for lunch or buying gas after school, borrowing money from mom and dad is perfect. And they'll put these into like transactions and T-charts and demonstrate like how these are like related to accounting in everyday life, and how you can like record those and like actually keep track of things that way, because it's not very common that people do. I think this presentation or project is really important for students because it gives them a different aspect on like money management too, and that's just like another life skill that like kids can pick up on. For the experiential, I chose simulations and games. This one's like really exciting, and I actually like look forward to this unit. I'm gonna have my students play Monopoly with their classmates, and they're gonna record the transactions that they make in T-charts, and then as a group discuss the real world transactions that are like Monopoly, like buying houses, selling property, things like that, getting gifts. And it's important for them to under the concept of this as real world accounting, but they'll be expected to have the accuracy on the transaction and the things that they have learned from prior lessons like T-charts, because they have learned that, and they are expected to have that knowledge and still apply it. this game is like really similar to the individual project, but it just has that extra spin with the involvement in class, and it's very hands-on, which students seem to really like. Struggles that I faced considering like 4 different ways to teach the same topic like exactly was like kind of hard because like accounting in the real world is so broad. Like there's so many different like options, and it's like hard to specify like what part of it you want to cover. The projects are more like oriented on like examples and how you can like find that, and the individual project and like the game are very similar but different in their own ways. I definitely like considering 4 different ways because it like makes me challenge myself, and like I'm definitely gonna like write a lesson plan differently after this assignment, because it definitely like helps you touch on each part of it and like know that like maybe I can incorporate like 2 or 3 of these methods in one lesson plan versus just lecture all class period or just a game all class period. Like it's really important that you just like combine them instead of just using one to keep students like interested. And takeaways I have from this assignment as it relates to planning, I kind of just touched on that. Like it's going to change the way that I plan things, because I thought that lesson plans had to be done one way, and that's absolutely wrong, and I do that all the time. I just think everything has to be done one way, and teaching is just so open and allows you to be flexible, and I think that's really cool. I definitely learned a ton from this lesson plan, and I can't wait to use some of these in my units, so I'm really excited about that.